I used to feel that I could never get ahead of all the ideas I have. Like, other people's problem is often that they don't have enough ideas. Meanwhile, my problem used to be that I had too many ideas to actually successfully act on. And I've now found a system that's helped me write approximately 70,000 words within the last 4 months. And that is while I'm still in active recovery from burnout and chronic illness. So it's not a system based on discipline. And today I want to show you that. Today I want to show you that system to help you get unstuck with whatever it is you want to act on. So first you have to understand, I'm just taking a look at my notes. First you have to understand that if you're procrastinating as a perfectionist, then it is most likely not a discipline problem. Like if you're a perfectionist like me, and I don't think it's a bad thing to be a perfectionist, obviously it can be toxic, but it is also a strength to say, no, I actually have high standards for what I want to do. And I always think that with whatever it is you're working on, you should have high standards for yourself and for whatever you're making. So as I said, if you're procrastinating on something as a perfectionist, then it is most likely not a discipline problem, but rather, like, I think it's one of two things, most likely both. Namely, first of all, it might be that you are in nervous system freeze in regards to your project. So that means that you're actually having like a neurological, biological response. Or it could also be, in relation to this, that you are just burned out on whatever it is you're doing. Like you've lost the joy for it. You don't feel like doing it anymore. And I've been there. So just a quick context for you on me, who I am. So I used to be a PhD student and lecturer in Eastern European history. And then about, so it is May 2026 now, and in February 2025, so last year, my nervous system collapsed. Like I had a complete, like mental breakdown, everything. Like it was like a just combination of academic burnout, autistic burnout, childhood CPTSD stuff coming up. And so then, I was chronically ill for the last year and a half. And so during this time, I couldn't work on anything. I couldn't do anything. And it was very painful to me because I'm also a writer. And I could not work on any of my creative projects. As I said, because I was having this nervous system freeze response regards to everything in my life, including my creative projects. And I was just burned out. Nothing in my life could bring me joy anymore. And so when in around October of last year, I started getting this inkling that I wanted to write again. And when that started, I was both joyful that this creative spark was returning, but I was also afraid because, like being passionate about things had gotten me into burnout. So what I started doing intuitively was that I just started spending time with my project again. I picked up the project that I had started before my burnout, and I just started spending time with it, not even really planning to do much, but just making sure that every single day I was sitting down with it for an hour and just letting myself be in that brain space. And some days that meant that I was listening to music that made me think about my project. Other days it meant that I was like building my Notion dashboard on it, or I was taking notes on Canva, not necessarily focusing on being productive. So basically, what I think now that I was doing, and oh my God, sorry for the overexposure, I'm recording this on my mother's living room, trying to oh my God, just ignore this. I'm recording this on my mother's living room without a microphone, so sorry for that. So as I said, I was spending time with my project. Essentially what I was doing, I was dating my project. Like when you're on a first date with someone, you're not like, oh my God, here's our life plan, here's the house we're gonna purchase. Hopefully you're not. But rather you're like, okay, I'm actually enjoying spending time with you. Like, is there anything here? And that is what I was doing with my project. And just letting myself be in that headspace. So if you clicked on this video, that tells me that you are most likely stuck on something. So I have 2 questions for you, and I want you to journal on them. Like literally, if you can, just pause the video and journal on them, and then watch the rest. And these questions are, wait, wrong page. These questions are, Well, have I been spending time with my project in a non-pressure way? And if not, then how can I do that? Like, what would be the most enjoyable way for me to engage with this in a way that is not putting pressure on me to perform? And once you've done that, really like thought about this, I want you to consider the core mindsets for my system. Namely, done is better than perfect, and rough draft now, refine later. As I said, I'm a writer, but this is applicable to all kinds of projects if you apply these core principles. Because as a writer, you have to consider that every single draft of a book, short story, whatever it is you're writing, has a different purpose, right? And what purpose that is obviously depends on your own process, but the purpose of a first draft is never to be the version that you would eventually publish if that were your goal. Like, the purpose of a first draft is not to have the perfect plot, perfect character arc, perfect dialogue, and perfect prose. That is, if that is your goal with your first draft, then it's no surprise that you're not working on it, because that is way too big of a goal. That's like saying I don't know, you just came to the gym, you haven't even warmed up, and now you're gonna do like, you're gonna lift like 100 kilograms or whatever. Like, it's not gonna work. So, as I said, core mindsets to remember is done is better than perfect, rough draft now, refine later. So, my process for engaging with my project. And this works on a high level, which is why I started out telling you the story of how I reignited my joy for my project. But it also works on a like smaller, really like sitting down with it level. Right. So when I started really writing again, which was at the beginning of this year, so in January 2026, I still kept that habit of, okay, I'm going to spend time every single day with my project. Except now it was a bit more, like focused. So if let's say I'm starting a new chapter. And I don't know, it's Monday. It's Monday, and I say, okay, this week I want to finish this chapter. I start the week by looking at the notes I already have. Most likely I already have a rough idea of what I'm trying to write, like what am I trying to say in this draft. And then, let's say on Monday, I will continue adding to these ideas. This is not even in my story project, my story document, but this is like in my Notion dashboard, or might be on my Canva whiteboard, like very, very low pressure. Just taking notes, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Then let's say I've done that on Monday. Step 2, on Tuesday, I will be taking these notes and I will be writing a zero draft. A zero draft is a technique that I unfortunately do not know who came up with it, but is essentially a technique of, writing your first draft for something without writing the first draft. Making it, this is my interpretation, making it messy. So what I will be doing now is I will be opening my story document and I will be writing, but it will be bullet points. Sometimes I will literally start by copying the notes I already had into my document, and then I will be adding to these in bullet points. And there's like a wide range of how detailed this is. This can be, literally just, okay, this happens in this scene. Cut, next scene. Or it can be the entire scene written out in bullet points with like the entire dialogue written out, wide range. All of this is okay. And I will be doing that for 1 to 3 days, depending on how long the chapter is. And then I've already done like 2/3 of what needs to happen, right? So then I will take these notes, and this never happens like in 1 week. Usually it's like 2 weeks per chapter, right? So let's say I did that for week 1, then for week 2, I already have everything that needs to happen in the chapter. I have the scenes, I have like maybe even a bunch of dialogue already. So now my job is simply to convert these bullet points into prose. And that is infinitely easier. Like, I cannot explain how much easier it is to take something that already exists and to then refine it rather than to create it from scratch and then try to create it from scratch perfectly. So then the entire drafting process is much smoother. And I convert these bullet points into prose. And then I have my first draft. This is not by any means perfect. Like, my first drafts are like, the prose is atrocious. I think every writer has things they really want to nail in the first draft. For me, like, my friend, her prose is great already in the first draft. My prose is caveman level. You are not allowed to see this. But what I really nail in the first draft, I think, is the emotional core and dialogue, because that is what is particularly important to me. And then I can move on to the next chapter. Why can't I just move on to the next chapter, even though it's not perfect? Because I know that once I have finished this entire first draft of the book, then I can go back to edit it and refine on it even more. I think you're getting the point, right? Okay, now you might be thinking, okay, Zhenya, this is amazing, but I'm not a writer. Like, what do I care? This is applicable, as I promised, not only to writing projects, but to any project in general. Which I know because I'm currently applying this to my YouTube videos as I'm restarting my YouTube channel. So earlier today, I had this idea of making this video. So I took some notes. Cannot see them, but I have some notes. And so I brainstormed, right? I brainstormed the project. Then I did a zero draft. So that means that I just once spoke through my notes with the camera off, and as I did that, I was refining the structure of what I wanted to say. And then I just hit record, and this is the first draft. And as you can see, the first draft is not perfect because, as I said, I'm recording this sitting on my mom's living room floor because I was staying at her place. And this idea came to me, and it was important for me to get it down as fast as possible so I don't have any chance of talking myself out of it, which is, by the way, another point why it is so important to take these small steps, because the smaller step, the less likely it is that you can talk yourself out of it. So as I said, I decided to record this first draft of the video because if I don't like it, I can just re-record it, right? I can just take this off YouTube, you would never know, and I can re-record it in a better, more professional way. But the important thing is that it already exists because, as I said, it is much easier to re-record this when I already have something to work with rather than recreate it from scratch. Okay. So, you might be thinking, oh, but if I don't, I don't know, but my progress will be too slow if I do it like this. Yeah. No, actually my writing output has only increased as I've started zero drafting. And I believe the reason is that slow and steady is better than fast and inconsistent. You'll remember that I started out my entire story saying I was just spending time with my project. So I was really getting into the habit of doing this daily. And doing this daily in a way that didn't expect me to be at my best daily, which is very important because, as I said, I am healing from chronic illness, including chronic migraines. And if you've ever had a migraine, you know that when your brain is literally attacking you, it is pretty hard to be writing the best prose of your life. So, and another reason that doing it slow and steady is important is because you'll remember I mentioned earlier that the two reasons you might be blocked on your project are nervous system freeze and just being burned out on it, is that if you are constantly forcing yourself to do something you are afraid of doing, then what you might actually be doing is not reprogramming your fear, but instead telling your brain, yeah, this is something to be afraid of. Because we went into it being afraid and we came out of it being afraid, and we did not enjoy what we were doing. And that way, you're only like disciplining yourself into a corner where the more you do it, the less you enjoy doing it. So by doing it slow and steady in these small steps that are actually, like there's never a day really, as I said, unless I'm having like a migraine, where I'm like, oh, I can't just take a few notes. I can't just write a few bullet points. Oh, I can't just convert a few bullet points into real prose. So it actually, the inhibition of doing the thing is like it's just so low because it doesn't require so much of me, right? And because it doesn't require so much of me, I can focus on enjoying it. And like really, I cannot stress like how much I enjoy writing my book. I've maybe, I've been super focused on telling you the system, but I really I love writing my book. It's my joy. Like as I said, it's like I'm dating it, like I'm like always thinking, oh my god, how can I sneak in more time with my book? So amazing. And obviously I have doubts, right? But in general, I'm really, I love it. And that is something I never had when I was still trying to force myself into things with discipline. Now I'm just like, I'm in love with it, really. And the magical part is the more you allow yourself to go slow and steady in these incremental steps, the more you enjoy it, the easier it will become. Because you will stop laboring so much for it. And if you are, it will be a labor of love. But you will also be receiving these downloads almost. It's hard to explain. But if you've ever had that experience of you just minding your own business, living your life, and suddenly you have this fully fledged idea of what you want to do in your head, that is like a download. And it really doesn't matter where it's coming from, like whether you believe like me that it's coming from the universe, or whether you're saying it's coming from subconscious, whatever, be my guest, right? The important part is that you want to open yourself up to receiving these downloads, because that is what will really make huge progress on your projects. And you can only receive these downloads if you are relaxed. Like it is not possible to do that from a dysregulated nervous system. And but it is possible and highly likely, in fact, if you are calm, if you're enjoying what you're doing, if you're spending a lot of time with it. So yes, that is was a bit of a system, a bit of a ramble. As I said, it is the first draft, maybe even the zero draft. And my name is Zhenya. I really, really hope this was helpful. If it was, please tell me. Let me know in the comments what you are working on and what your problems with it are, because I always look to the comments to figure out what people might want to hear about. So if you make a comment, I might make a video about it. So yes, as I said, thank you. I didn't say it yet, but thank you so much for your attention. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.